Good, awesome. Well, guys, I see that not everyone had a chance to give an intro. So yeah, as we're starting, please write in the chat whether you're a technical or non-technical founder, what stage you are at, and yeah, what are, let's say, the main points that you're interested to get out of this session. So hopefully, my our mission is to make this hour as efficient, as productive for you as possible. But yeah, but to start with, I'll start, let's say, a bit, from the high level, going a step back and just making sure that, let's say, fundamentally, building and launching products like didn't change much like before AI and now, like fundamentally in terms of like principles, how we approach like launching and scaling products is the same as it was before the AI. Like AI definitely is a catalyst for change, for innovation, for adding let's say new ways of, for example, for personalization of the user experience or for like new features and functionalities. But let's say fundamentally how we approach to getting user feedback, validating whether we're building actually the right thing for the audience that we're targeting, pretty much is the same. So just wanted to start from this point because I know, and I was in that same situation that with the pace of the news that we were getting about the new models, new agents, new possibilities that are opening up, we're getting a bit of an anxiety and like a FOMO that like we're missing out on something, and if others are moving way faster than we do. But it's important to stay calm and focus on the main value that you want to bring to your customers and see where AI brings most value. So coming to the point, like what are the let's say the how to prioritize your product roadmap with integrating the AI. So it's most important to start with value as the main principle. So what the product is bringing to the customers and how AI can increase the value over the hype of, let's say, uh, just adding AI for the sake of having it in the product. I saw many large companies doing the same mistake. So, for example, we use ClickUp. That's a task management tool. So we use it on our team, and yeah, they just stitched AI because of the hype that was happening last year and the year before. That there was a significant pressure from the boards, from investors to just have AI in their products. So they added it as not as a fundamental value add, but just like a nice to have, just like an added feature. And we use actively ClickUp on our team. And me personally, I haven't used the AI functionality at all. So I see Dima from my team nodding. So Dima, I guess you haven't used their AI features much either, right? Yeah, yeah. So that's a good example when AI was added in, but not not without proper planning and research where the value add is and how to really improve user engagement, their productivity, or some other significant metrics. So I'd start with if you're not mapping your user problems already, to start with that and then see, okay, where we're adding the AI functionality makes a significant difference and can give you some competitive advantage. So yeah, like that's probably what I wanted to start with.
So, how do you balance speed to market versus sustainability? Like, how do you make sure you're not optimizing for a short or like optimizing for the right thing, right? If you go for something that's like a quick solution, maybe that's like I don't know, an easy like SaaS tool you can find versus building something that's going to be a bit more sustainable. What are the questions founders should be asking themselves to make those decisions?
Yeah. Again, so I start with always, let's say, an MVP in mind. So we are usually thinking of MVP as our, let's say, initial minimum viable product in general. So, but every feature can start with with an MVP. So when you want to add some, let's say, additional functionality to your product, so you obviously need to start, with the minimum implementation that will bring value, and then scale after you get data and feedback from your customers. So I would definitely recommend, if possible, to start with leveraging some off-the-shelf AI tools to test, these MVPs. So, just integrating, let's say, OpenAI API or Google's Gemini or Claude. So to implement some specific functionality, good example. So right now we're talking with the founders who want to build let's say grocery stock management app for B2C market. So and the let's say the vision is that you'll be able just to take a photo of your fridge and the app will analyze what you have and then like based on that recommend your next shopping list, recommend recipes what you can cook with your existing stock in your fridge. So and the founders were quite eager to start actually building something and already investing time and money into it. And we said like guys, let's start with prototype, to validate the idea, see what we can use to build as little as the beginning as possible, and then scale once we see that this concept is actually picking up. So the prototype was just taking the photo of the fridge, putting into ChatGPT, and seeing like what outcome the existing LLM without any additional customization and fine tuning can provide, and it provided quite decent results. So always think like what you can use off the shelf to validate, to test an idea. And I mean, like, even when you already have the product and you're testing some feature. So, and only then proceed to, well, let's say, more investment while once you make sure that, yeah, that actually brings value to the end customer and will bring tangible value both for them and for you as a startup in terms of user engagement, user acquisition, and so on. I would also really focus on building efficient feedback loops with your users, and that's not not necessarily is connected with specifically AI, but just in your process, make sure that you have a solid process to collect feedback, like let's say frequently from your users, and there's multiple ways how to implement that and most importantly action on that feedback because you can build how let's say really cool features but if you don't have that connection with your users so you might not get the let's say get the value out of getting user feedback. And probably really important point is especially important for founders who already, let's say, are past MVP, so who already launched, raised their initial rounds, and are now scaling, to change the mindset from, let's say, let's say building fast and like breaking things because this will break the trust of your existing users. So in this fast investment stage, it's important to a bit change the perception of how you build things in order to, let's say, bring more stability and thorough process in order to roll out new updates which are better tested and yeah and they will not have a negative impact on your existing user base.
I'm guessing too that latter bit is particularly dependent on what industry you're operating in. Like if you're a B2B enterprise company, right, you probably don't want to have like MVP style products going to your enterprise customers. Similarly, if you're like health tech, whether that's customer facing, patient facing, I guess, versus like hospital facing, you you need to demonstrate like a high level of trust and that it's a dependable product. Do you have, does your, I guess like, do you suggest that founders tailor it to their customer, or is there still like reasonable MVP steps companies can take if they are building in a more regulated or kind of like high trust environment?
Yeah, interesting enough, what I'm noticing in the market is that AI adoption in highly regulated sectors is faster than other
Oh, really?
domains. Yeah, so right now, and let's say in the portfolio of the startups and businesses we work with, so there's a significant portion of healthcare businesses and startups, and also fintech. So these two areas, in terms of AI adoption, move really fast, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. First, for example, in healthcare, there's a lot of interaction with the end user, as you know, the patient, and a lot of that interaction is either communication or some other means where AI definitely has a strong value that it can bring by collecting that initial information, aggregating it, processing it, and making the, let's say, the doctors work more efficient. And there's also a lot of other use cases for drug discovery, for analytical tasks, and so on. So the field of use cases is really wide. And because of the high, let's say, regulation, my let's say assumption is the quality of data might be better compared to some other markets. And for AI to bring, let's say, the best outcome, the quality of the data is of one of the highest importance. So, and since, in finance, healthcare, so data is regulated, it's, maintained in a structured way. So that's perhaps one of the reasons why the application of AI there is well, moving really fast.
It's a good point about quality of data. Before I move on to my next question, I just want to say I'm thinking it might be useful if I want to make sure it's really tactical for the founders. If anyone here has a specific use case in their mind that they would want to work through in the group. For example, like if you're like, okay, this is where my product is, this is where I want it to be, what are my options? Or I have a few options in mind, but I'm struggling to figure out what's the right path. If anyone wants to go through like a personal situation like that, that might be really useful for you and also for everyone. So feel free to like DM me and or just put it in the chat if you have something in mind you'd want to bring to the group. Um, Before I move on to um, our next question, I had a follow up to something you said earlier about getting customer feedback. And I know that you guys help a lot with managing feedback and helping figure out like what feedback to prioritize. And I'm just curious, have you ever seen founders get negative feedback and kind of start to integrate that in the product roadmap, make the necessary changes, when in actuality, like the problem is maybe they're chasing the wrong customer? Like, how do you figure out whether you should be pursuing a different customer demographic or whether you should just be like listening to the feedback and seeing where it initially resonates?
Yeah. Well, it's a very broad question. I don't think there's a, like a silver bullet that works for everyone, right? But a rule of thumb is to look for patterns. So definitely there might be very loud users who are, actively using the product, but not necessarily let's say they're trying to adapt to their specific needs. So, and it's important to make sure that feedback from a single user is relevant to other users as well. So I'd look for patterns, not, let's say, individual strong voices who are very vocal about their let's say experience with the product. So because what works for a single user might not, work for many others. So that's my general, let's say, advice that we see on quite a lot of projects. So and yeah, and the beauty of AI right now is that you can streamline and automate the process of feedback collection. So not only through standard forms, but actually have an interactive, personalized experience so that the AI let's say feedback bot can really do the interview for you, so saving time and getting even more insight from your existing customers. So yeah, I would look into that as a one of the ways how to kind of, let's say, expand your operations without needing to hire someone else or spending your personal time on feedback collection from users.
It
And then like seeing really interesting patterns, you can then go ahead and speak with some of those users personally, because again, at this early stage, it's important to know your customer personally. So not only rely on let's say, on the tools and AI bots to do that for you, but also speak with your customers personally in order to better understand whom you're serving and what are their needs.
makes sense. Yeah. One loud voice is louder than a thousand quiet voices. It's easy to get skewed with that. Sorry, that was totally off topic from AI product development, but I figured it's probably useful to every founder, irrespective of what they're building. What are the common mistakes that you see founders making when they begin integrating AI with their workflows or product development?
Yeah. So one of the mistakes already mentioned is, adding AI just for the sake of having it, to add it to your investor pitch deck rather than actually uh, having it as a fundamental, let's say, value enabler on your product. So that's one of the most important, let's say, and critical mistakes that founders can make. So the other thing I believe is not let's say uh not taking too much enough care of the infrastructure of your system. So, and this is more, let's say, of a technical point. And like, if anyone interested, we're happy to elaborate about that and discuss more in a one-to-one setup. But in a nutshell, when building, your product at the beginning, your MVP, infrastructure costs might seem very small and not that relevant, but as the product grows, as the you get more users, more let's say traffic on the platform, especially when it comes to let's say using third-party AI models, so because they also come at a cost. So it's important to have to build your infrastructure designed with the scale in mind, because those costs can ramp up very easily, and yeah, this might be a significant problem if not managed correctly. And also, let's say, from the product stability in general, the right infrastructure is important. So not only, let's say, the features, not only what the user will see on their screen or on their mobile device, but also on the infrastructure which supports the whole product. That's really important to to make sure that you have a sustainable product and don't run into any significant blockers. The other problem, I think, is not related, let's say, to product itself, but more to like hiring and like, let's say, your team planning. So let's say over hiring, let's say AI or non-AI engineers too fast is a big problem that we notice in startups. So especially once they raise, they start, hiring the team. So I'd recommend to have a bit more lean approach and definitely bring on board, let's say, technical leader who will, let's say, own your product to make sure that you have that ownership in your core team, but then be very, let's say, strategic about how you source the necessary resources to keep growing the product. Because, hiring comes with the uh, with significant commitments and costs. So and yeah, be careful about your runway because yeah, like the next round might not that be easy to raise as some founders might think it is.
I think hiring, we could do a whole other session on hiring, but I guess like one follow-up question I have on that would be, have you noticed a market difference between the number of engineers founders are planning to hire with like the surge of AI? Like, did you see founders previously forecasting that, okay, after I close my pre-seed or seed round, I'm going to be hiring 3 engineers, and now I only need to hire one or two? And then also, how should founders, especially like for the non-technical ones, how should they be thinking about whether or not they need to hire an engineer and what like skill sets they should look for? Again, that's like literally a whole other workshop, but are there any little tidbits that you'd want to share with founders?
Yeah. What we see in general in the market is that not only, let's say, startups, but also especially like businesses, they prioritize hiring more experienced engineers with let's say, who are already AI savvy and are, let's say, open to change and open to recent, let's say, to try new things and test new tools. So that's the overall change that we see in the market, that junior, let's say, and early mid-level talent, so they are a bit struggling. So again, depending how, let's say, savvy they are and how proactive they are with using new tools, but that's the overall trend that we see on the market. Yeah, as I mentioned, in terms of, let's say, the hiring decisions, so I would start with, if you don't have a technical co-founder who fully owns the product, to fill in that role first, having, let's say, a founding engineer or yeah, like a initial tech leader to, to own the product, and then like strategically source the talent to fulfill, let's say, your product roadmap. Yeah, Andrew, yeah, question.
Yeah, thanks, Roman. Yeah, obviously for kind of first-time founders building a small team like myself, more so on a fractional side, it's not always possible to hire. Certainly if I'm raising a small round initially. So I'm looking to kind of continue that fractional direction. Is that something that I'm seeing a lot more businesses and founders go in this direction, certainly at the earlier stages? So, not necessarily hiring, but really being smart and resourceful about, exactly, what 2 or 3 days a month or whatever it's going to be, with equity or whatever. Is that a direction you're seeing more founders go in, or instead of hiring initially?
Yeah, yeah. With the fractional trends, we see it a lot as well, but I think it makes sense on the, let's say, on the strategy, let's say, level. So when you need help to define, let's say, the product strategy, or the, let's say, the technical, architecture strategy, it makes sense because with the fractional approach, you can bring on board someone with significant experience to, like, let's say, to define the roadmap. But on the execution side, I don't think fractional resources are that efficient because you get very little commitment. And, on the execution, like, there should be focus. So you need someone who will be focused on the task and have then, let's say, the sufficient velocity to deliver. Because again, speed is very important when it comes to startup, especially, after the initial raise, after there is the expectation from the board that you set up, from your initial early investors. Because before the first round, you can, work at your own pace and let's say play with the data, with the metrics the way you want. But after the first race, you already have, the board to be accountable to. And then like it won't be possible to play with numbers. You will have to report on, on a monthly or quarterly basis. So yeah, so fractional, good for strategy, for let's say strategic advice and direction, not ideal for execution. So that's why, bringing maybe like some near when you have the strategy and leadership sets, with fractional resources, then it might be good to have, for example, nearshore resources to actually deliver that roadmap. And then the most important fact is, let's say, aspect when setting up that, let's say, nearshore team is to see that there is, let's say, emotional commitment from the team to make sure that you're working with people who really value what they're working on. So and yeah, so they will, let's say, even without having a direct stake in the startup, they will still do their best to deliver great results.
No, thanks for that. Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Perfect. And just a reminder to the other founders in the chat too, like again, if you have any personalized questions, please, please, please ask. Don't be worried if you think it's only specific to your business. It's most likely still helpful for everyone. Roman, we chatted a little bit about using AI bots to collect user feedback. Are there any other low-hanging fruits, or low-hanging like use case for where founders can accelerate development with AI or just like reduce their workload?
Yeah. So let's start from, let's say, the product perspective, and then like talk more broadly about some other use cases. So when it comes to actual development of the product, so it's really important to understand that AI has definitely evolved, and there's already quite a lot of tasks that can be either like fully or let's say by 95% taken care of by AI, but it's still, let's say, not at the stage of development to, let's say, completely take care of specific, let's say, end-to-end flows. There is, especially, with all of these influencers and all on the social media, there is a lot of hype and overpromise of AI capabilities, and it's important to filter them down and don't transfer that as expectations from your team and pushing your team to, let's say, using AI for everything and yeah, and putting too much pressure on the AI usage. Trust that having the right team who are, let's say, open to change, open to innovation, trying new things, they will be using AI where it matters. But I see some of the founders, yeah, putting too much pressure and too much expectation of, let's say, the benefit that AI tools can bring in the development to the development of products. Practically speaking, the more context the model has, the better outcome. So the tests which have significant context, for example, writing tests, so covering code with tests. So since the AI already has the code that your team has written, so it's a very clear task for it to cover that code with tests. For example, in Impressit, our engineers are not, writing tests almost at all. So AI covers that part completely on their side. So then, there are tools which give code reviews and, highlight some possible mistakes. There are code generation tools as well. So obviously, Cursor is probably the most popular right now being used on the market. So, but again, maybe for some, let's say, smaller cases, not, to fully, let's say, build production ready applications. So yeah, my main thought is definitely have build like a culture of innovation and change in your team, but don't put too much pressure, expecting that AI will increase the productivity of your engineers, I don't know, 10 times. So we are not there yet. In terms of, let's say, non-technical tools that AI can bring value on, it's definitely about, automating some of the workflows. So as I mentioned, the user feedback collection could be one of them. So what the most probably advanced platform for building AI workflows and even AI agents for non-technical users is probably N8N. So that's the one used most widely on the market. So we use it internally as well to test some of the use cases as well. So I'd recommend looking at it as well. So to see what it makes for you. There's a lot of on YouTube and other resources, there are a lot of tutorials how to use it. So even non-technical founders can try it out. So it's still on my to-do list to try and build some of these automations myself. So I don't have any practical experience to share just yet. But yeah, I know Dima from our team. He's an evangelist of automation. So yeah, like if there are any particular, let's say, use cases that might be interesting to you, we could follow up later and share our thoughts how they can be implemented.
That is also on my to-do list as well. Um, are there, I guess, like one use case that might be useful to just like chat through now is um, what we spoke about at the beginning of the session, which was like around personalization. Like what's the sort of low-hanging fruit for non-technical founders when it comes to being able to personalize the user experience?
Yeah. Probably the lowest hanging fruit is the user onboarding. So that's let's say, the first interaction of the user with your product. And I would start with that because this might help with the one of the most critical metrics, which is like user conversion, for them to actually register and start using the application. So I would start with that, looking at how onboarding of users can be customized, and then let's say once they're on the platform, so yeah, how to improve the adoption and let's say uh, making it as, let's say, frictionless and as easy for them to pick up and start working with your product. So I start with that.
And are there any tools that you have in mind or that you've seen work well for this?
So to implement that, I think starting with just, simple integration with OpenAI or other LLMs should work. So and then like building, let's say, the onboarding process. So yeah, this is already goes in a bit more, let's say, specific case for the startup. So it's hard to give it's again like one for everyone solution. So it's individuals depending on the nature of the product and the industry.
Got it. And again, if there's any sort of like personalization questions that you guys might have, please ask. Or if there's any tools that you are using right now that have been particularly useful for you, please share it with the group. I think everyone would appreciate it. So I want to now talk a little bit about for the founders who know that they're going to be like they're building the tool in they're building something in-house or they're either using like nearshore developers. They're not just looking for like a SaaS integration or something like that. How what are the questions or like what's the discussion they should be having with their developers or with their team in respect to like product how product development can be accelerated with AI. I know we've touched a little bit about this, but is there anything else that you would add on that? Like how should founders' expectations change?
Yeah, yeah. So I think when it comes to, I guess the question is when you're considering, working with some external team to help build a product, how to, let's say, validate that they will be actually efficient in building their product and they're using available tools in the market to streamline this process or not. So, and I believe it's comes to let's say having deeper conversations, sharing the vision for your product and seeing whether the team is coming up with their own, let's say, ideas and if they're challenging the let's say your vision for the product and come up with proactively coming up with ideas on how A to improve the product itself, B how to implement it in an efficient way. But again, it's important to balance speed, and stable solution. So using AI tools is great, let's say to build prototypes, especially. So there are tools like Lovable or other application generation platforms that already can generate, let's say, simple apps based on the prompts, based on you just explaining how the application should work. And then it's possible to take those prototypes and actually continue building on top of them. But it's important that, it's this strategy works for this initial stage, not for, let's say, later stages when you have launched products with live users and you already need to transition to a more structured development process with the correct infrastructure, with different environments, for building the product, testing it, and then deploying to the end users. So in this environment, you already need to shift the thinking from, quick, quick, solutions to a more organized and structured process. So this, let's say, early stage of working with the vendor, so and validating whom to work with, I prioritize on, let's say, the culture fit first and foremost. So because, they can be great with using some let's say newest AI tools, but it's important to look for that emotional investment that they are, let's say, advising some solutions based on experience, and they're looking a few steps ahead, not only, let's say, how to ship specific, let's say, feature right now, but how it will evolve later, and how this will all form into a, let's say, a seamless product roadmap. So yeah, for me, when we, let's say, make new hires, it's most important to see that there is that let's say maturity and experience in terms of the ways of thinking and like the commitment towards let's say towards the product that they'll be working with, and having that emotional investment to see that okay, like the people will actually care that the product is stable, that it brings value, not just trying fancy things, breaking on the way, and in the end breaking the trust of the users who'll be using that product. So yeah, it was a maybe not that structured answer, but hopefully I'll deliver the point.
Realistically, so you mentioned lovable there. How realistic is it that non-technical founders can essentially like prompt their way to a product? Like, are you seeing found non-technical founders who like can't write any code be able to actually launch a product with something like Lovable?
So I think it's right now possible to create a prototype and let's say give something tangible to the initial beta testing group and use it in your pitches to investors. But we are not, yeah, the AI technology is not right now at the stage to launch like full product being, just on your own, non-technical with these AI tools. So there is this underlying infrastructure which is important to take care of. So, and you definitely need support from the, let's say, from experienced engineering team to actually build a scalable product. So yeah, so that's what we are seeing right now. Great for prototyping, but still needs technical background in order to launch a full product.
That mirrors what I've seen, and I've tried to like play around a little bit with Lovable to see what you could come up with just using prompts, and like it was not it was not useful. I wasn't sure if that was like just due to the prompts I was putting in or if that was similar to what other people were experiencing. I have another kind of off-topic question. I'll just highlight to founders. We have a few more minutes, so if you do have any questions, now is the time. Do you have any? You mentioned that there's like a lot of sort of AI loud AI voices online that are talking about, how you can build a seven-figure business as a non-technical founder using blah, blah, blah. Are there any trusted sources that you follow on like LinkedIn or YouTube who you think have a like a realistic pers or trusted perspective?
Yeah, there is a number of newsletters I'm personally signed up to follow news on the AI. One of them is a newsletter from the HubSpot founder. So I find that list very useful. After we wrap up this session, so we'll share several links, and you can circulate with the group so that they have at their disposal. So yeah, I'd recommend following, yeah, like industry leaders, so and their newsletters and other resources. So people who are savvy in the tech space, who launched products and scaled them. So not, definitely not influencers who have a direct benefit from, from selling products on
Yeah.
online. So yeah,
Not like the YouTube videos aren't filled with like affiliate links in the description. I feel like that is usually a good sign that it's not.
exactly.
Yeah. Um, are there any things that you recommend for founders who are using, like you mentioned, like the open AI, like integrating open AI or something like that? Um, Anything that founders can do to test edge cases and make sure that they aren't having a product that is like spewing out something bad or inappropriate to customers?
Yeah. So that again comes to a fundamental process of quality assurance. So, and this is a standard process which was, a part of any product development throughout the decades now. So yeah, so it's important to have that, let's say, function in your team that someone is actually doing quality assurance of your product. And now it's just changed and added some additional, let's say, number of cases that your quality assurance engineer should take care of. If you don't have a dedicated person responsible for quality assurance, this role still needs to be covered by someone, whether it's yourself or some other team member. But that is a fundamental part of the, let's say, a reliable product development process in order to make sure that, yeah, you don't break the trust of your users once you launch something and yeah, and it doesn't operate in a way that you'd expect it to work.
Okay, I think this is my last question. What what actually I'll just ask, does anyone else have any final questions for Roman or the Impressit team? Again, if it's something really personalized to your business, that's
Yeah,
more
just
than fine.
feel free to unmute or raise your hand. So
Okay, I'll ask my question. Um, if you and your competitors more or less have access to the same like toolkit, shall we say, everyone can personalize their experience now, accelerate the product development. Where should founders be? What should founders be focusing on to specifically create a meaningful moat or differentiator?
Hmm. Can you like yeah like a bit elaborate on that question so I could give
Yeah,
the best answer?
like if if your ability to personalize the customer experience and um, speed up product development and integrate different or add different features, you can do that much more faster and you can be more reactive to customer feedback. Like how can startups look to differentiate themselves if like they know a competitive startup also can do the same thing that they can do really quickly and really inexpensively?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it really comes to the available resources that the startup founders have. That's why, again, like perhaps, partnering with a team makes sense just to expand your capabilities because a single founder can, do as much as 24 hours in a day allows. So yeah, that's the main point. The other point is definitely understand well your market and your competitive landscape. So what I'm seeing right now, and I'm hearing from other customers, especially investors, they quite a lot of them just scroll the deck to the competitors and looking whether you actually know whom you're competing with and what are your advantages. And yeah, knowing your competition landscape well will then give a better insight over the, let's say, the roadmap and the product improvements that you need to make in order to stand out from the crowd and yeah, and deliver a better product and see what are those differentiators that you can capitalize on.
That makes sense. Okay, we will wrap it there. Impressit team, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your knowledge. Founders will include the link to where you can find the Impressit team and the other resources mentioned during today's session. We'll send that out in the follow-up email. As a reminder, we also have a session at 4 p.m. today talking about how to manage your runway and your burn rate, and then that's at 4 p.m. And then tomorrow at 5 p.m. we have a session with a Hotbed alum on how he broke into YC and raised from Silicon Valley investors while being a London-based founder. So hope to see you at those. And thanks again, everyone. Good to see you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks a
Thanks.
lot. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.